Saturday, March 21st, 2020, Monaco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. This morning, I want to talk about the 1985 Plaza Accord. There's been talk that we could see a major, concerted action tomorrow by the major central banks to reenact the 1985 Plaza Accord and inject the market with liquidity, devalue the US dollar through intervention by the major central banks. Do I think that will work? I'm not too convinced. So why devalue or debase the dollar? Well, because the dollar is still the reserve currency of the world, and that when there are crises like we're having right now, people sell a lot of their assets, of course, and that's why we're seeing a lot of the stock market crash, the bond market crash, the corporate bond market, all the other non-governmental bond markets crash, because people need the liquidity to cover margins or to cover loans and everything else. And a lot of these are in US dollars, of course. The system is highly leveraged. It makes it even worse. We have a lot of bad actors, in my opinion, highly leveraged hedge funds and other financial institutions. I think the repo crisis in September was to do with that. Even the BIS said that the hedge funds are at the heart of this problem. We also hear that relative value trades, like basis trades, buying and selling cash and futures, trying to make a small difference, which is the basis through leverage, is kind of blown up. So, and this is all public information. Back in 1985, I don't remember there being such a crisis. It was more of a currency problem. And if you look here at the dollar index, going back to the early 70s, you can see when the Plaza Accord was signed. And if you look on the chart, the dollar had topped already in February 1985. So they were actually going with the trend, I would say. So I think that accord only helped accelerate the trend. Right now, as you see here, the dollar has spiked quite sharply in the in this recent crisis. It's gone up to as much as 102.99. I've made videos before in the last few months and last year or so, saying that I think the cycle top for the dollar index was on January 2017 at 103.82. So we got very close to that level. We got to 102.99. Could we break up above that and break the cycle? Definitely. Nothing is certain in the markets. When I make my forecast, it's based on probability and studying the old cycles. We'll have to see. Do I think if the central banks decide to come out tomorrow and say we're going to intervene in a concerted action to sell dollars, to try to reliquify the market, to get confidence, faith and confidence back in the market, will it work? I'm not too convinced, because as we've seen in the last few weeks, central banks, especially the Fed, they're already doing that. Have a look at the Fed's balance sheet here. It's already exploded higher in the last few weeks. The Fed has announced also programs to support municipal bond market, the short-term corporate bond market, which is commercial paper. They're already supporting the repo market. They've announced QE, 700 billion. You've had the ECB announce QE, 750 billion euros. You've had the Bank of England. You've had governments announce fiscal stimulus, and none of that has helped. I think it's a problem of faith and confidence. They could try, of course, tomorrow to come out and announce this. It could help calm things down. But I would say the problem now is also liquidity. Whether you get the dealers and the brokers in the office to provide a market for all these securities, and we know what's happening. People are being sent home. I heard from someone there's a rule. It's called the Series 24 FINRA rule that says that market makers cannot make markets. It's illegal to make markets from home. So how is there going to be any liquidity unless there are some brokers or dealers that are left in the office to make a market? I read an article yesterday as well in the Wall Street Journal about the corporate bond market. Like emerging markets, for example, you call a dealer or a broker and you can't get a price, so you can't get out. There's no liquidity. So what I'm trying to say here, this kind of concerted action worked in 1985. Will it work again today? Is it really the necessary cure for the problem? I personally don't think so. We've seen that they've thrown a lot into the markets, especially the Fed, and it hasn't helped one iota. We saw yesterday the stock market continued to go lower. The Dow lost 900 points, 4.5%. S&P lost 4.3%. NASDAQ lost 3.8%. The small cap Russell 2000 lost 5%. And if you look at their performance for the week, the Dow dropped 17.3%, S&P dropped 15%, NASDAQ 12.6%, the small cap 16%. And in the last month, the Dow is down almost 34%. We are quickly approaching, I would say, 1929 crash numerics, so to speak. So would a Plaza Accord style by the major central banks help the situation? Maybe in the very short term. I think it would be taken again as an opportunity to get liquidity, or i.e. to sell. Before I go forward to look at some charts, talk a little bit about the precious metals, I wanted to look at an article I've seen this morning, top headline in the FT. It says, UK government draws up plans to buy into airlines, taxpayer injection for British Airways and other companies in return for shares. So it's the old excuse, of course, of a crisis to bail out big corporations. They're saying here that eventually the government would sell it back to private investors. The thing that caught my attention, though, reading the article, and I'm not going to go through the whole thing, it's just to give you an idea of the people behind the scenes. So I'll read from the article. It's towards the middle of the article. It says, one UK official confirmed that the talks were taking place and admitted that the state could end up with equity stakes in the airlines. He said the government was being advised by bankers from Rothschild, the investment bank. Would the Rothschilds try to advise the government maybe to let the airlines collapse and not lumber the taxpayer? Of course not. I don't think they probably have ever advised governments to do that. Why? Well, because they get a huge fee from advising the government to do that. So the usual suspects, I wasn't surprised to see that. Rothschilds involved in this. So just wanted to put that out. The other thing that I've been reading is how Congress is toiling, so to speak, or working on a $1 trillion rescue. There seems to be a little bit of disagreement between both sides, Democrat and Republican. Looks like the Democrats want to inject the help for workers directly through the unemployment insurance. The Republicans want to inject it through the employer. So they're expected to probably sign this into law on Monday. I thought it'd be interesting to show you charts of the Dow. So here we go. It's a monthly chart going back to before the year 2000. and you can see it's very clear here, this trend line from the bottom in '09, April '09 I think was the bottom. The trend has been broken. We've closed below that trend line, so it's not looking good. So the precious metals, yeah, gold closed fairly well yesterday. It was up on the day, closed around 1500 after the regular hour, and I think the Dow Gold ratio is getting towards 12. So yeah, there are a lot of people concerned about gold and silver, but I don't think they should be. Silver did quite well yesterday as well. I think we went back above 13. I know it's a very low price. I saw an Instagram post yesterday from one of the bullion dealers, major bullion dealers here in the UK. And they were actually asking people if they wanted to sell to them, which is something I usually don't see. And you go to their website, they don't have any stock. And it's strange because with the silver market dropping so much as it has, with gold off the highs, of course, you would expect in a normal free market, in a market that actually trades gold and silver, that you would have a supply of gold and silver because people are selling it. So why is that happening? Well, because the paper gold market, which is the COMEX futures, and also the unallocated LBMA market, the ETF, GLD, they're not real gold markets. They're just speculation on paper, and they're still driving the price. And that's why there's a shortage. Someone said, quoted on, because I tweeted that out, that Instagram post, and someone said, well, with the current crisis, there's shortages of everything. And I said, yes, there might be shortages of things, but silver has come off massively and gold has come off the highs. There shouldn't be shortages because people are supposedly selling it, but there are shortages. It just goes to show what a sham the paper market is. Before I finish off, I just want to show you how important the bond markets are. I know the financial media, the mainstream media, they're covering the major move lower in the stock markets, but the bond markets are even more important for the financial system. Just wanted to show you how big the bond market is. So as you can see here, bond markets, global bond market outstanding 102.8 trillion. And then you've got the equity markets, 74.7 trillion. So you can see how important the bond markets are. The bond markets provide the funding for everything in the economy, for the credit market. It's where people, institutions, corporations, municipalities, governments, it's where they come to fund themselves. It's what keeps the economy going. Let's see if something happens tomorrow. Someone told me that tomorrow is 3/22 in the US date, because here in Europe we do 22/3, and 3/22 of course is the skull and bones number. So they expect something big. Maybe it could be a 1985 style Plaza Accord agreement. We'll have to see if it works. My gut feeling, of course, is that for now, faith and confidence have long gone. I think something more than just an accord like the Plaza Accord will be necessary to reboot the whole system. It's going to take more than just central bankers deciding to devalue the dollar to solve the current problems. So we'll have to see. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like button. Please share it far and wide. Think about subscribing to the channel if you haven't yet. And you can also follow me on Twitter, Facebook, BitChute, Steemit, and DTube. I wish you all a great weekend. Take care. Bye.